For decades, we have been told that growing a meaningful amount of food requires a massive amount of land. We picture long, exhausting rows of turned earth baking in the summer sun. And so millions of Americans break their backs every single spring, dedicating 30 or 40-foot stretches of their backyard just to grow a few dozen pounds of potatoes. We dig trenches, we fight weeds, we hill the dirt. We accept that more space equals more food. But what if that entire concept is a lie passed down by industrial agriculture? What if I told you that you could pull nearly 100 pounds of nutrient-dense, perfect potatoes out of a single structure that takes up no more space than a small card table? Just 4 square feet. No long rows, no endless hilling in the dirt, just an upward column of staggering biological production. Welcome back to Ancestral Soil. Today, we're going to dismantle the horizontal gardening myth. I'm going to show you a forgotten vertical growing method perfected over generations by Amish families who could not afford to waste a single inch of soil. And when you finally understand the hidden plant biology that makes this possible, you will wonder why anyone still plants potatoes in a traditional row. But to understand why this vertical method works so flawlessly, we first have to unlearn a deeply ingrained habit. And I will make a confession right now. For years, I planted my crops the exact same way everyone else did, never questioning if it was actually the best use of my land. The modern agricultural system, Big Ag, is obsessed with flat, open acreage. They plant in endless horizontal lines for one simple reason. It is the exact language their massive diesel tractors understand. Over the last century, that industrial mindset quietly bled into our home gardens. We were taught to treat our small backyards like miniature commercial farms. But you are not driving a tractor, and by copying their industrial methods, you are leaving up to 80% of the plant's natural yield completely untapped, buried beneath its genetics. The industrial food machine does not want you to maximize your independence. When you walk into a supermarket, the potatoes sitting under those bright fluorescent lights are not vital, living food. They have been routinely coated in synthetic sprout inhibitors to survive long supply chains. The industry intentionally freezes their biological clock, selling you a dormant commodity that will often just rot if you put it in the earth. They want you dependent on their aisles, not thriving in your own backyard. To break free from that cycle, to turn a few seeds into a mountain of sustenance on a tiny footprint, we have to look to a community that completely ignored the Industrial Revolution, a people who understood that when space is limited, the only way to survive is to build upward. To truly understand the gravity of this method, we have to look away from modern conveniences and travel back to the homesteads of the 18th and 19th centuries. Look at the Amish communities in places like Holmes County, Ohio. For these families, a backyard garden has never been a relaxing weekend hobby. It is a strict mathematical survival equation. When a brutal winter sets in and you have 12 hungry mouths sitting around a wooden dinner table, a failed crop simply means starvation. They did not have the luxury of running to a supermarket. They did not have the space to waste on sprawling, inefficient rows of crops. Every single square foot of earth had to pull its maximum weight, or someone went hungry. Through generations of quiet observation, long before agricultural universities published their peer-reviewed papers, these farming families realized that the potato plant holds a dormant superpower. They saw that when the plant was forced into a vertical struggle, it yielded exponentially more food. It was not a clever trick for a gardening magazine. It was a strategy born out of genuine, freezing necessity. And today, modern biology finally explains exactly why this ancient survival tactic works so flawlessly. Here is what happens on a microscopic level beneath the soil. When you take the green, growing stem of a potato plant and intentionally bury it in dark, nutrient-rich compost, the plant undergoes a radical hormonal shift. Deprived of sunlight, that buried section of the stem panics, and then it adapts. It triggers an ancient survival response. The buried stem begins pushing out lateral, underground branches known to botanists as stolons. As the main leafy plant continues to reach upward, desperately seeking the sun, each one of those dark stolon tips begins to swell. They gorge themselves on water and starches, transforming into brand new tubers. In a conventional horizontal garden, you might push a little dirt around the base of the plant once or twice a season. That means you only get a few inches of buried stem. You strictly limit the number of stolons, which permanently limits your harvest. But in a vertical tower, you repeatedly bury the stem over and over again as it climbs. You are essentially giving the plant biological permission to lay new potatoes along its entire vertical length. You turn a simple root into a multi-level food factory. However, there is a crucial scientific catch. A silent killer of backyard towers that causes thousands of beginners to fail every single year simply because the commercial industry refuses to educate them. Not all potatoes possess this climbing gene. The commercial seed industry rarely explains that potatoes are divided into two wildly different genetic categories. Determinate varieties, like the popular Yukon Gold or Red Norland, are genetically programmed to produce all their tubers in one single shallow layer. It does not matter how tall you build your wire tower. It does not matter how much straw you pile on top of them. If you use determinate potatoes, they will simply stop producing, giving you the exact same disappointing harvest you would get in flat dirt. To unlock this massive stacking yield, you must use indeterminate varieties. These are the relentless, climbing genetics that respond to continuous burial by producing new stolons at every single level. Varieties like Russet Burbank, German Butterball, Canela Russet, and Elba. When you take an indeterminate seed potato and subject it to the continuous burial of a vertical tower, you are no longer just gardening. You are orchestrating a biological explosion. To reclaim this biological power in your own backyard, you must start by rejecting the supermarket entirely. You need certified, indeterminate seed potatoes. About 2 to 3 days before planting, cut those seed potatoes into pieces roughly the size of an egg. You must make sure that each piece has at least 2 eyes. Let them sit in a cool, shaded place until the cut surfaces dry and callous over. This ancient instinct seals the plant, preventing it from rotting once it is placed in the moist earth. Next, you build the containment. Take a simple length of welded wire fencing and form it into a cylinder about 4 feet in diameter. Set this wire tower directly on the bare ground in a spot that receives at least 6 hours of punishing direct sunlight. Potatoes will not produce a massive yield in the shadows. Line the inside of the bottom foot of that wire cylinder with a thick nest of straw. This creates a breathable wall. Inside that nest, drop a 6-inch layer of a rich 50-50 mix of compost and loose straw. Place 4 or 5 of your healed potato pieces evenly on top of this layer, making sure the eyes are facing the sky. Cover them with another few inches of your compost mix and water it deeply. Now you wait. Within 2 weeks, deep green shoots will pierce the surface, racing toward the sun. This is where the modern gardener stops and the survivalist begins. When those green stems grow to about 8 to 10 inches above the soil, you strike. You pile another thick layer of your compost and straw mix directly around the stems, burying them alive. You leave only the top 3 or 4 inches of the foliage exposed to the light. You are forcing the plant to adapt. You repeat this exact burial cycle 3 or 4 times throughout the summer, gradually filling the wire tower to the top. Every time you bury that green stem, it throws out new stolons in the dark, laying another level of heavy, perfect potatoes. But there is one critical rule you must never break. A vertical tower breathes from all sides, meaning it dries out much faster than the flat ground. You must press your finger 3 inches deep into the growing mix. If it feels dry at that depth, you water that tower heavily until you see moisture weeping from the straw at the very bottom. Inconsistent watering is the ultimate enemy. It produces warped, struggling tubers. Steady moisture produces survival-grade food. Late in the summer, the plant will push out flowers. That is your biological signal to stop burying. The factory is now in full production beneath the straw. Wait another 4 to 6 weeks for the green vines to naturally yellow and die back. Do not rush this final phase. The skins are toughening up for long-term winter storage. When harvest day finally arrives, there is no backbreaking digging. You simply cut the wire ties, step back, and let the entire towering column of earth and straw collapse. And then you just sift through it with your bare hands. Heavy, flawless potatoes will be resting at every single level, from the top of the pile all the way down to the dirt. I will give you an honest expectation, because the truth matters more than hype. While an experienced grower using mature genetics can absolutely pull 100 pounds from a single tower, your realistic first-year expectation is 40 to 60 pounds. But realize what you have done. You have pulled up to 60 pounds of vital, calorie-dense food from a footprint no larger than a welcome mat. You have taken a handful of seeds and a pile of organic matter, and you have bypassed the entire industrial food chain. True independence does not ask for permission from a supermarket. It is built by those who understand the ancestral rhythms of the earth. If you are ready to stop relying on a fragile, broken system and start building your own self-sufficient harvest, subscribe to Ancestral Soil right now. And make sure you click on the next video where we will uncover another forgotten biological miracle that the system tried to erase.